Hi, I'm Beth Beesky, the founder of More Time to Design and your host of the Design Dialogues podcast. I've been a designer for the last 12 years and I've run my own studio for 5, and I know how hard it is to run a successful business. You not only need to be great at designing, but you need to be great at all the other things as well. I created More Time to Design, a software platform to help designers run efficient studios, and I've created the Design Dialogue podcast to help us all learn together. Each week, we will meet professionals who are at the top of their game doing things that help us run our studios. We'll have conversations with social media managers, interior design mentors, copywriters, stylists, photographers, suppliers, and also designers who have been in the game for a long time and who have such a wealth of knowledge to share. I hope that each week you feel inspired and informed at the end of each of our design dialogues. So join me for the Design Dialogue podcast. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of the Design Dialogues podcast. This week, it's a solo with Beth episode, and it is our last episode of the year. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone for listening and participating in this podcast. When I started this podcast 6 months ago, I had the aim of creating community and education and inspiration for interior designers. And I have been blown away by the feedback I have gotten from people, not only online, but in real life. I'm really touched by it. And to hear that people are enjoying it and getting so much out of it just means the absolute world to me. So thank you everyone who has reached out, come up to me at events. I've had, people who... Podcasting is a funny thing. It's not like Instagram or other social media platforms. Quite often you put the podcast out there in the world and you're not really sure who's listening. You kind of can see how many downloads you're getting and all that kind of stuff. But there's not quite the level of feedback that you get from other kind of content that you put out there. And so I've been really touched when people have come up to me at events and they've been like, oh, I heard that episode and I really loved it. And I just love what you're doing with the podcast. I kind of look forward to hearing it every Tuesday morning. So thank you to everyone who is listening. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who has subscribed and made it one of their favorite podcasts. So thank you. I'm actually ending the podcast for this year a little bit earlier. I was planning on releasing another interview this week and also next week. But this year for me has been a great year, but it's also been an exhausting year. And my family has had the dreaded COVID go through us over the last few months, and it has really knocked me for 6. I have been, fortunately, like previously when I've had COVID, I hadn't even noticed that I had it. But this strain that's going around at the moment is brutal. And so I've just kind of made the decision to just take it easy. Which is really quite unusual for me. I'm a bit more of a let's power through and keep going. But something that I'm working on is being a bit kind to myself and taking the advice that I would give to someone else. And that advice is to just slow down a little bit. I have lots going on. For those of you who don't know, I have 2 small children. My son is just finishing his first year of kindergarten, and there's lots of really joyous things on at the moment that I want to take the time to enjoy with him and also with my daughter. And it's been an exhausting end to the year. The COVID was kind of the last little cherry on top of that pie. And so I still have these great interviews, but they will just come out in January. And so this is the last episode of the year, and we will be back on the 9th of January. in your ears with lots of amazing interviews. I have had the privilege of recording some really inspiring interviews that'll come out in January and into the new year. And they are just so lovely to listen to. The guests are so generous with their knowledge, and I know you will take a lot out of them. I wanted to also thank all of the guests that have come on the podcast this year. I have called on some dear friends in the industry who I've known for a long time to come on the podcast. And I have also reached out to people that I have never met in real life and asked them to come on the podcast. And everyone has generously said yes and shared their time, their knowledge, their experience, their wisdom, their mistakes, their triumphs. And I am really eternally grateful for that, because without the guests, there really is no podcast. So I wanted to say a big thank you to all of the guests that have come on. I wanted to also just highlight a few episodes that you might want to go back and listen to that have been real standouts for me. And this list is really quite long. I promise I'm not naming all episodes that we've published so far. But there's just some real highlights, and maybe you might want to go back and re-listen to them over the next few weeks in between our break. So the first one is episode 3 with Gemma from Studio Gemma. Now, Gemma is an absolute powerhouse, and as a little sneak preview, we are going to have her back on the podcast in 2024 because, my goodness, she's such a wealth of knowledge and such a joy. So definitely go back and listen to that interview, and then also listen out for her next interview coming up in 2024. The next one is episode 10 with Ruby Shields, who, my goodness, could anyone have such an amazing start in this industry? Ruby, I know, is going to go on to so many amazing things, and it is a real privilege to watch her grow and shine and her genius be recognised. So please, I encourage you to go and listen to Ruby's episode. On that note as well, if you haven't heard Ruby's episode of the Design Files podcast, where her and her husband talk about their renovation journey, I really recommend you go and listen to that as well. Once again, so much information and insight into what it's like renovating on a budget, but also what it's like to renovate as an interior designer, where you have so many ideas and you just want to try them all. The next episode is episode 14, which is with Lynn Bradley, who is just such a beautiful soul and just such a wealth of knowledge, and it was a real privilege to interview Lynn. The next episode is episode 18 with Simone Matthews of Soul Home. Once again, just, I think, so generous with her time and her knowledge, but also her passion to educate not only designers, but also the public. And that helps our job. That helps our jobs to be so much easier. And then the last 4 feature episodes, and they're kind of a set of 2, is the episodes with Kate Nixon and Adam Jones, so episode 19 and 20, where hearing that conversation and that 2 sides of the one story about the designer and the maker, and how collaborating can be done so well, I found so inspiring. And then also the last 2 episodes that I've released with Catherine and Nat, Catherine from the Stables and Nat from the Palms. These 2 episodes, I think, were the episodes I have gotten more DMs on from people saying, oh my gosh, I love these girls, I love their work, I love the interviews, I love the chats. And I am so privileged to be able to call these people friends. I've known them for a long time, and we all kind of started in the industry at similar times, and we've all taken very different paths, but being able to bring their stories to this community was a real privilege, and I am so glad that you all enjoyed them so much. So those are just a few of the episodes that I would say go back and listen to over the Christmas break, and come back in January, where we will have many, many more amazing dialogues for you to listen to. And so I just also wanted to take this time to say Merry Christmas to everyone and Happy Holidays. And I really encourage everyone to take some time away from the desk, take some time away to recharge. I know that can be hard, especially if you're running your own business, but it's something that I have become more and more aware of, that it is so important to do. It really does set you up for a much more successful year if you are refreshed, your body is refreshed, your mind is refreshed, and you kind of can blow out all of those cobwebs from 2023. So I encourage you to take a day, a week, a month, whatever you can to refresh the mind and the body. And once again, thank you so much for your ongoing support and appreciation for the podcast. I love putting it together. I love getting to meet these people and interview our guests. And I love that you find it helpful and you are enjoying listening to it every week. So thank you. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I look forward to seeing you on January 9th for our next Design Dialogue. Thank you for listening to this Design Dialogue. I hope you have found it full of inspiration and helpful information to take into your design studio. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, consider sharing it or writing a review, as it helps us reach more people, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to unlock the power of effortless studio management and elevate your design business to new heights, please follow the links in our show notes to see how more time to design can help you build a better business. Have a great week, and I will see you for our next Design Dialogue.